Sikhs, known as the Sikh missiles. They all commanded a number of fighters and reside over territories. These units came under the title of Buddha-dal and Tarna-dal. And these fighters actually amassed a lot of money, bounties, and they accumulated a lot of money. At the same time, they also picked up relics on their travels as well. When they were fighting against the Mughals, they were picking up swords and various other items as well. So the story of relics does not come just from the Guru period. It does get consolidated during the 18th century, during the Muslim period itself. Although the heads of the Buddha-dal kept these relics safe as possible during the turbulent periods of the 18th century, one of the biggest achievements of the 18th century in Delhi was the actual symbol of sovereignty when Baba Gurinder Singh actually kind of conquered the Red Fort with just Singh Ramgarhia and just Singh Alawali as well. So it's a very, very great kind of tradition in the Sikh thought, which actually kind of tells us that the Sikhs have made major inroads inside of Delhi. But the reason for mentioning Delhi is because as the Sikhs were progressing throughout their kind of conquest in the 18th century, other missiles were getting powerful at the same time as well. And one of the missile leaders was Ranjit Singh of the Sakachakya missile, who attained leadership at the age of 12, and he was able to wrestle control from the Punjab missile, and then he actually consolidated all of Punjab, and that is when truly the Sikhs actually saw a unified Punjab under one individual. And Maharaja Ranjit Singh at the age of 20 was a tremendous feat. He had a lot of things that he was able to juggle at that young age. And so Ranjit Singh made Lahore his capital and ensured Amritsar was maintained as a religious centre of the Sikhs as well. But one of the key points to bear in mind is that he tried to create administration centres, and he also tried to create treasuries. Look at the word I'm using, not treasury, but treasuries, which means more than one treasury. So, in a sense, this kind of challenges a lot of things in terms of what people talk about when they talk about the word Toshakana. If you think of the Toshakana being in the hall only, there's been many descriptions of the Sikhs by Westerners, and I think this is a good place to actually start the whole story as well. When the East India Company came into the Punjab, well, they came into India first, but when they came and started getting in contact with Ranjit Singh, they were very, very keen to understand the psyche of the Sikhs. What they wanted to know was what makes the Sikhs tick, but they also wanted to know what their wealth was like as well. So military administrators, drawers, artists all came within contact with Ranjit Singh to find out what was in this Toshakana of Sikhs. What I'm showing here on my left is a drawing done by Emily Eden, who actually got sight of some of the relics which were actually in the Toshakana itself. I'm not going to go through all of these in detail, but just to give you an idea, in that time, which was 1836, this is from 1836, she was able to get to view the Kohinoor, for instance. She was able to look at other pearls, which was considered to be almost as valuable as the Kohinoor. Uncut rubies, topaz stones. So essentially, the British were pretty aware of the Toshakanas at an early period, well before the annexation of the Punjab, and well before the Anglo-Sikh Wars as well. So it's really important to actually understand what these treasuries were as well. And like I said, there appears to be more than one. We have the main one, which was referred to as the Toshakana. We also had one at Govindgarh Fort as well. And the third one was actually kept at Karandasar, known as the Golden Temple. And we can be certain that the keepers of this treasury was individuals like Mr. Basti Ram, Tej Chand, and Mr. Billy Ram as well. So different people were looking after these treasuries over different periods of time. And we're going to look into more of these treasuries as we go through this discussion. But the important point to bear in mind is it was during annexation, it was during the Anglo-Sikh Wars when the British started to look and wonder what can we actually take from from the Sikhs, sorry. The annexation of the Punjab was very, very key for the British. British in actually kind of breaking down the psyche of the Sikhs. And the treaty that was initiated between the Lahore government, dated 29th of March 1849, dissolved what we can call the Sikh Empire. But they also asked for the cost of the war to be paid by the Sikhs as well, something which many people don't know about. And this brought him to question the role of Gulab Singh, who was able to purchase for himself areas of the Punjab, namely Kashmir, for instance. He was able to just purchase it as part of the treaty. But as part of this treaty was also to divide and look at the relics and artifacts as well. The treaty ensured that the Kohinoor diamond became part of the British Empire at that particular time as well. So that is very, very important. Sometimes we think the British take things, but it's actually written in a treaty that the Kohinoor should be given to the British. And that can still be challenged, by the way, as well, because when people talk about whether the Kohinoor should be returned, there is some level playing field where there is some inconsistencies with that treaty as well. Okay, so the overall task of war reparations fell in the hands of the Governor General, Lord Dalhousie. He made an individual called John Logan in charge of the Treasury. The idea was to find out what's kept in this Treasury, how many items are there, what's valuable, what's not valuable, what can we do with this, do we need to sell things off? That was the key role of John Logan. And essentially, Logan was already familiar with the Sikh treasury because he was actually on the battlefield of the Anglo-Sikh War. He had actually picked up, a few years earlier, Akali Nahang, the start, he picked up a copy of the Guru Granth Sahib just on the battlefield. So he was kind of a little bit aware of what the Sikhs were about and their attire as well. But he was also responsible for choosing various jewels for Dalip Singh. When Dalip Singh, Mara Dalip Singh was taken to England, he became his custodian, and he was able to choose for Dalip Singh the best jewels for him to take back on his journey. And you'd only know that if you could understand the treasure. And his John Logan was very key in this whole episode. That's John Logan here. And basically what he's saying is on the 6th of April, he was installed by Henry Lawrence, who's a regent there, with the Governor General to be given the kind of position to actually try and catalogue what was in the actual Doshakana. So as he was cataloguing all this wealth, his rough estimate of the jewels in the Doshakana, exclusive, so not including, exclusive of the Kohinoor, was a little short of £1 million at that particular time. That's just one estimate he's given. And the Kohinoor at the time was actually was really seen as a very, very valuable piece of, jewelry, but it was well known throughout Indian history, and it also caught the attention of the British as well. So it became nothing difficult for them to actually realise what kind of measures they had to take in place. When they'd actually gone and actually captured the actual Kohinoor itself, they kept a special guard around it. A special military unit was attached just to guard the Kohinoor. Okay? So that's a very, very important point as well, how much they had to invest in order to keep awareness of the relics. So, we also need to know what John Logan was trying to do. Essentially, the idea of cataloguing these things was to also create descriptions as well. And these include things like manuscripts, armory, shields and swords, jewels, as mentioned, Kashmiri scrolls, other objects. It was absolutely amazing what he was able to actually catalogue in the end in terms of what we constituted Sikh relics and artifacts. And what Logan also says is that, I wish you could walk through the same Doshakana and see its wonder. This is his description. The vast quantities of gold and silver, the jewels not to be valued, so many and so rich, the Kohinoor far beyond what I can imagine. And he goes on to list all the different items he actually saw in Doshakana. As part of this lecture today, what we also want to do is I'm going to gloss over the Kohinoor diamond. What we also need to do is what was actually in the treasury, like I said. And I think the key thing to bear in mind is that the Sikhs had a lot of items which were very special and very dear to them. And as part of the cataloguing, we can actually see for ourselves that there are numerous kind of weapons which are in Guru Gobind Singh's treasure, so to speak. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these again, but if we, and the spellings on the way the British have written, I'm not writing this with mistakes, these are the way the British have actually written the words. So you should, look at it, and the key point here is the Galgi Igaj. Okay, so we kind of had a discussion about this earlier on today. And we mentioned about the Galgi of Guru Gobind Singh holding a very special place within the Sikh psyche, so to speak. And I think what's really, really important is the concept of what Galgi Igaj means. Because when we refer to a Galgi, we look at the physical thing. So how can a Galgi be made out of Gach? Okay, how can there be a glass Galgi? So there's also descriptions, obviously, which is very, very clear that the British made wrong as well. And it's quite possible that this description was absolutely wrong in terms of what was described here. And there's various theories as to what it could actually be read. So just to give you a lot of flavour in terms of what was available in the treasury at this particular time. So the East India Company, they had to decide what to do with all these magnificent items. The key thing was that there's too many. So what they did was they initiated 5 sales within the Punjab. And unfortunately, we don't know much about these sales, but quite a lot of the relics were actually sold within the Punjab itself. And most of these items possibly never to be seen ever again, unless they're in someone's house and even now to this very day, we don't know. Others were absolutely catalogued to say, these are all going to go to the UK. Some were even earmarked directly for Queen Victoria herself. Okay? Some were even labelled so they would go exactly to Queen Victoria herself. And I think it's really, really important because we always talk about iron shards, we always talk about what's important to us. I think the biggest disappointment, I think, for most people is that how can things leave here, Punjab or India, wind up in the UK, and then all of a sudden they just disappear. I think that's the key thing. It's happened with the Galgi, which we talked about, but also there's 2 particular swords which are very, very famous. They're known as the Rekot sword and the Toshakana sword, and they both belong to Guru Gobind Singh. And the actual provenance of those 2 particular swords has been already kind of defined in the 1850s because the British were aware and they've already got the history of where the swords came from. And one of the swords goes back to Reikala or Rekot, for instance, and one of the swords was actually kept within Patiala as well. And I think the key thing which summarizes the information on this particular sword, okay, in 1854, R.C. Temple is the actual secretary who's writing this dispatch. Just before I talk about what he actually says, it's important to actually know that the descriptions on the sword were from Guru Gobind Singh's Bani as well, Sri Pals. And it just gives you this idea of how important this particular sword was. R.C. Temple actually writes, the sword of such a man, Guru Gobind Singh, is doubtless a relic of such much historical interest. It was also stated that it was impolitic to permit any Sikh institution to obtain possession either by gift or by being sale of the sacred and warlike symbols of warlike faith. Let me just try to explain what he's trying to say. Not only are the British trying to actually conquer Sikh territories, annex the Punjab that we talked about, but they want to try and break the psyche as well of the Sikhs. They already know that the Shastras of the Sikhs is which makes them. They've seen, they even describe about Maharaja Ranjit Singh doing puja to his own weapons. We know this kind of thing is taking place. It's a Maryada. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to break this bond between the relics and the community. So with this particular sword, it said it would never go back to the Sikhs. Now I've done some research on some manuscripts in the UK, and it says quite clearly never to leave England for exactly the same particular reason. It's that psyche that we're trying to actually create at that particular time. So like I said, these swords were actually dispatched, they were actually sent to the UK, and again, unfortunately, these were never to be found ever again. So again, there's a number of missing items which were sent to the UK, but then somehow all of a sudden disappeared. Now, there's various theories. I don't want to go too much into various theories of, in the modern age, people talk about where things are. But, they could still exist. It's still really, really important to track these down. I look at catalogues all the time. Sometimes things are mislabeled. We're going to get up, maybe one day there will be time. It would be very interesting if it was to. Now, we also talk about whether sometimes Sikh relics can actually come back to the UK as well. And there's been various attempts over the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years to try to actually have some of these relics brought back to Punjab. But I think one of the key items was in 1965. The reason in 1965 it's important was because the Governor-General, Lord Dalhousie, was in charge of the relics which were taken back to the UK. And he took a lot of items for himself, so he had a personal collection of relics in Scotland. And what the family did was, in the 1960s, was they actually agreed for a number of Shastras to be returned back to India. And this important photograph here actually shows you the relics of Guru Gurinder Singh received by Lal Bahadur Shastri, and then passed on, and eventually they were taken to Keshgah Sahib in Anandpur, where they still are there to this particular day. So, some people say, well, if that can happen, then the Guru can come back. It's not the same thing, because this was actually in a personal collection. The Kohinoor is in a state collection. There's a big difference with regards to that. But things can come back, have come back. But I think for us and for the community, the fact that the Guru Shastras did come back in 99% is a very, very important fact to bear in mind. Okay, so.
Sorry, can we know the number of Shastras? The item?
Questions at the end, but I'll address that. Yeah. Thank you. So what we did was, as part of an exhibition that we did last year in England, was on the Anglo-Sikh Wars. And on the Anglo-Sikh Wars was a big, big time for the Sikhs and the East India Company. Either side who won would be in control of the major regions of British India, so to speak. And the fact that when we looked into how the artifacts and relics were in the UK over the last couple of years, it's just mind-boggling. There's no end to how many items of interest are in the UK. Every time we say it's 500, it turns into 1,000. Every time we say it's 1,000, it becomes 10,000. Every time we say 10,000, you can double it and double it and double it. That's why there's a vast amount of resources related to Sikh institutions in the UK, because so many army personnel went to the UK and they brought things back with them. But most importantly, they picked things up from the battlefield as well. The Sikhs picked them up from the British side, the British picked up things from the Sikh side. So, why am I showing you a Bible of all things? That's where you might be asking. As part of our exhibition last year, we looked at various different museums in the UK, not the big ones like the V&A and the British Libraries. We went to some of the smaller museums. They're called regimental museums. And these regiments were the ones who fought in the Anglo-Sikh Wars. So we went to these small, short-dated museums which no one had ever been to. And we kind of found so many different items of interest. It was pretty amazing for us, just as a personal journey as well. But the reason I'm actually particularly showing this Bible is because within the notes of various items, the Britishers would actually describe things as well. And this particular Bible, just like the Sikhs would take the Granth Sahibs into battle, the British took their Bibles to battle as well. But this has a description of the Babylonian Bible, for instance. So it just kind of shows you, even items like this on the British side is very historical, just to know about our history as well. We visited Wales as well, and we actually located a number of Jacka as well. And obviously people are aware of the history of Jacka. You mainly see them in terms of Akali Nahans in their attire, for instance, worn on the turbans, for instance, worn on their necks as well. But we were able to locate a number of, nothing extravagant in fact it's not kind of gilded, it doesn't have a lot of gold work, etc. on these, but it's still very, very important. This is a very, very fascinating item here. Now, we just talked about the star, we just talked about turbans, but during the time of Ranjit Singh, a lot of military personnel, one particular unit was the Gujaras, and they were actually on horseback, but they used to wear metal helmets as well. So in order to protect their metal helmets, in a sense, but also to give a bit of clarity, they used to wear these headdresses as well. So we located this headdress in a museum in Nottinghamshire. And it's really, really fascinating because I don't think I've ever seen any of these before. I don't know if I've ever seen any of the jars myself. So I'm very, very fascinated to actually discover this. And the reason I'm showing this is because that was found in the Battle of Aliwal during the Anglo-Sikh Wars. But yet, we have a description of Sher Singh at Aliwala, okay, in the Second Anglo-Sikh War, and as you can see, it's very similar. So we've got that kind of continuation in terms of these kind of items and how they were depicted as well. And move on to coatees as well. Now, during Maharaja Ranjit Singh's time, there was a lot of Europeanization of the Sikh forces. Okay, there's major European generals brought in to create drills, they were brought in to actually do military exercises, but they were also brought in to actually bring their kind of uniform as well. So this particular uniform here is actually pretty very rare to be found in the UK. When we actually looked at it, which was in Worcestershire, it's not actually for an adult itself. It's actually for a young boy. And we did a lot of investigation, but we were unable to determine who it belonged to. So it could have been one of the Rajas, so it could have been one of the sons of the Raja. We don't know, but it was definitely brought back during the time of the Anglo-Sikh Wars. The other costume is just a military shell jacket, which also took place, which they used to wear in one of the wars as well. So we've talked about some military items, and we talked about some attire as well. But I think the key thing also to bear in mind is that a number of Sikh manuscripts lie in the UK as well. And we're talking about a number of Guru Granth Sahib manuscripts, Sri Singh Mann, Janam Sakhis, Pothis, other Punjabi literature as well, all reside in the UK. The British Library contains numerous examples of manuscripts there. And I think this particular one is really important, which belonged to Maharana Dindankur. And it contains various verses, but mainly is composed of Sukhmani Sahib, part of this particular manuscript. And it's very highly decorated as well. And it's something really magnificent to see, to actually see in real life. Moving on to other kinds of manuscripts, it was whilst we were doing this project on the Anglo-Sikh Wars that I discovered this particular one in Leicester, in my city where I'm from. And this Porti contains binding from both Sri Guru Granth Sahib and Sri Singh Mann as well. And the interesting thing about it was there's an actual label on here as well where it was found, and it says, if you can read, Sikh Granth, taken from the tent in the entrenchment at Ferozshah, December 24th, 1845. This was literally taken 2 days after the battle by the British. And it was actually labelled on there, and it was actually brought back to the UK. It's only significant because, and the reason for showing it is because I just discovered it by chance when I was looking through the catalogues. And that's the thing about the UK. There's many places there which do not know what they have in their own kind of catalogues. Because, unfortunately for us, Sikhs don't actually go to museums as much. They don't go and knock on museums' doors, institutions' doors, and say, what kind of relics and artifacts do you have? Until you actually ask people, no one's going to tell you. It sounds very simple, but it's very true. Very true. But unfortunately for us, we do that. We do this every time. We contact various museums just by chance and say, what Sikh items do you have? And they're generally very good in terms of telling us. The same manuscript, as I just showed you, was put on display last year as part of our Anglo-Sikh Wars exhibition. And as you can see, we did this in a really elaborate fashion. We had never seen any exhibition in the UK where there was a Porti or a manuscript displayed which followed a little bit of Maryada as well. So we actually thought, okay, We will also drape it in a Ramada, give it a bit of sanctity. And even the way it was displayed, because it was going to be in one position for 3 months, a special cradle was made for it as well. Our job is not just to show things, but also to make sure how do we preserve things in the right way as well. If you're going to do something, you're going to do an exhibition, do it correctly, do it rightly, no damage to the body itself. We worked with the university to make sure the conditions were right. They were so happy that we were able to tell them about Sikh and then we were happy that they were able to tell us about conservation. That's how partnerships begin. So the display, as you can see, with the Shastra in front as well, was really, really well received by the people who went to see the exhibition as well. Okay, we'll move on briefly to Maharaja Dalip Singh. Now, Maharaja Dalip Singh, when he was exiled or taken, shall we say, by the British to the UK, he was able to bring a number of relics or his own personal items with him. Now, the reason for showing that portrait is because just recently, a few months ago, there was a big exhibition in Thetford. Thetford is where Maharaja Dalip Singh is buried now. Thetford, Norfolk is the name of the location. There's an exhibition taking place, we're part of it as well. But these would just kind of show you some little items here in terms of Maharaja Dalip's collection. They're now also scattered all over the UK as well. Now, Faisal mentioned earlier on at the start, we are working on the world's first online Sikh museum where we're digitizing items. And we've got sight of a number of relics of Maharaja Jindal. We then pass them on to Princess Sophia Dalip Singh. And we now have the relics in our hands, which we're digitizing at the moment, creating 3D, and you'll be able to see these. These have never been seen before as well. So these are the kind of work we're trying to do at the moment. So one really important thing which I thought I would mention is Darisal. I like this, especially for you, is everything in terms of Sikh relics is not about what the British had taken. There was quite a lot of relics which were actually gifted to the British as well. Maharaja Ranjit Singh actually gifted a number of items to the British, but after the annexation, the Maharaja of Punjab as well, they actually undertook a lot of gifts which they gave to various princes on their travel. So here you have the Maharaja Patiala, Jind, Leacourt and Napa as well. Very elaborate. But what's really important is, can you see the swords? Can you see how elaborate? Look at the magnificence of those particular swords. Let's talk about that in a second. But I think the key thing is that we had a visit in 1875 of Prince Edward. Okay? Prince Edward came in 1875, and what he did was he actually took an extensive tour of all of India, visited 21 locations, but then he also went to the Punjab as well, and that is when he met this Maharaja. And the Maharaja had gifted them a number of elaborate items. And I thought it would be useful just to give you an idea of what some of these items might be. Now, when we talk about the Queen of England has these items, the Queen of England is not a Queen, the Queen of England is not this, it's not quite true, it's not the Queen who's got it. There's something called the Royal Collection Trust. And these items are all kept within this Royal Collection Trust. So, just to give you an idea, because what the Royal Collection did in 2017 is they actually opened their doors up a little bit where people could start viewing what was in the Royal Collection. And there was a big exhibition taking place in the UK on the gifts that were given to Prince Edward, and these included, like I said, a number of important swords and armour as well. So this particular one is gifted by the Maharaja Jind. Look at the Dalbar. It's like a European style blade, but it's actually got so much elaborate jewels and rubies mounted on there as well. Absolutely magnificent. And in the exhibition you can actually see this magnificent sword there. Maharaja Patiala, he gifted this Dalbar. It's got a curved blade on it as well. And there's a velvet kind of covering on it as well. And I thought I'd actually show you this from another point of view as well. So you can see, those who can't see on that side, how elaborate these gifts were. So we talk about one Ikhlas, which is about Sikh relics and how taken by the British, but then you've got other parts as well in terms of how gifting took place and the elaborate gifts that were given by the Raja after the annexation of Punjab. Here we have one that was created by Gurinder Singh Mann in 1876. And this has got a rhinoceros hide shield of Dal. And again, very, very elaborate. You can't actually see on this particular photograph here. Those 1, 2, 3, 4 is actual designs of cheetahs. Okay? The cheetahs curled up just to show the military kind of significance and the hunting significance, so to speak. So there's a lot of kind of gifting going on, like I said, by the Maharajas. And I am kind of going to finish it here, but before I do, I just want to actually say that the number of Sikh relics and artifacts in the UK is immense. When I say immense, we're talking about, I could literally go from my city, travel 1 mile in any direction, and there will be a link between the British and the Sikhs in some way. Now, I've only touched on a few little items here, but if you can see in this photograph here, the top left here, that's from the V&A, that's of a Star Gunga, which is not on display. There is one on display, but this is one that they don't show you. This is the archives of the V&A. That's a tucker from Brecon in Wales. The sword on the right is from the Balawali Wall, which we use in our exhibition. A number of Sikh cannons were taken during the Anglo-Sikh Wars. In fact, every cannon was taken from the Anglo-Sikh Wars. Some were melted down, some are still there. This one's from Maidstone Museum. The picture there at the bottom is the National Army Museum in the UK, and they actually hold a number of items of Sikh interest. And the picture on the right there is the opening of the exhibition of the Anglo-Sikh Wars in Leicester in 2017. So, in summing up, what we can truly say is that there is a number of Sikh relics and artifacts in the UK. Some have been catalogued, some haven't been catalogued. Some are missing, as we've already described, including the Shastras of Dr Gurinder Singh, and some we just don't know the location of. And it's our job to actually find out what to do with these relics. And for us as an organisation, what we need to do is to move things into the digital age as well. What we're finding is you can have an exhibition, but our children are really going to be attracted by it. So what we are trying to do is we're trying to actually create digital things. So what we did was we actually are now incorporating 3D printing. We're also undertaking virtual reality. We're also taking augmented reality. All the new stuff that you see, big corporations doing, people with lots of money. We've got hardly any money at all, but we're still trying to do something as well. Because we think that's the most important thing to do. If we want to educate everybody, our younger children, people in the future to know about what the Itihas is, then we have to also use digital platforms as well. And next year, we already showcased, I was unable to show a video today, but maybe at another time on our website, very shortly, what our virtual reality museum will look like. So next year, you'll be able to go onto our website, and you'll be able to see various kind of relics, click on them, and you'll get information about them. You can put on a set of 3D goggles, and you'll walk through, and you'll be able to see these items as well. That's about actually trying to make Sikh items of interest relevant in the future. It's not about just cataloguing and talking about the past. Let's make it real. Let's make it significant. Let's make it important. Let's get everyone educated so we know about Itihas and we can re-educate ourselves as well. Thank you very much. Why would you
request Dr. Gill to take his